You two really are cowboys, said the Iceman. Maverick replied, "What's your problem, Kaczynski?" The Iceman said, "You're everyone's problem. That's because every time you go up in the air, you're unsafe. I don't like you because you're dangerous." Maverick replied, "That's right, Iceman. I am dangerous." Recognize this quote's movie? Stay tuned to find out, or check out the title of this episode of Talking Pictures Trivia.
Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of geographically challenged friends explore movies through trivia as an excuse to keep their friendships alive. I'm one of these friends and today's host, Nick, and with me is...
Tom.
Additionally, joining us as guests this week are...
Doug.
Justin.
Thanks for joining us. Justin has joined us for Back to the Future and Batman 1989. Doug has joined us for numerous episodes, including the inaugural Raiders of the Lost Ark, Solaris, and American Graffiti. Justin and Doug conveniently like movies. For those joining us for the first time, we start off each episode with a movie quiz, as these pivotal questions will determine who earns today's trivia crown. In round one, each question is worth 1 point, and in round two, each question is worth 2 points. Then, once the fierce competition is over, we follow it up with our famous movie rant where anything goes. Tom, tell us about today's movie.
Today we are going back to 1986. Pixar Animation Studios is formed. Clint Eastwood is elected mayor of Carmel, California, and Whitney Houston wins the MTV Video Music Award for Best New Artist. During all of this, Tony Scott's movie Top Gun was released in theaters alongside Tom Cruise's Legend, Short Circuit, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Karate Kid Part 2, and My Little Pony, the movie. Nick will be quizzing us today. Nick, what is Top Gun all about?
Tom, that's a great question. I'm hoping we can explore this further throughout this episode because I'm still wondering a bit what it is about. The one thing I do know is there's a fighter pilot named Maverick who's very dangerous. He's the second best until someone else can't handle it anymore, and then he goes to Top Gun. He has a really endearing co-pilot, Goose, who unfortunately dies in a tragedy and mistake and error, whatever. Then he competes with a really good pilot who's very disciplined, but is he a bad guy? I'm not really sure. We'll talk about it. And then they graduate and go to a battle with an anonymous enemy and save the day. The end. Tom, if you only had one word to describe Top Gun, what would it be?
Mechanophilia. Doug?
Dangerous. Justin.
I would say dog fights.
And hopefully I don't blow up the internet right now, but my word would be overrated.
Oh, well done.
This week, I'm going to add an additional rule. All questions will follow the Price is Right rules, where the closest to the number without going over wins the point or points, depending on the round.
It's time for question one.
How many times do we hear Kenny Loggins playing with the boys?
Locked in?
Locked in. Should I say missile lock?
Ah.
Locked on.
Ah, there we go.
Oh, the puns are flying today.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start with Justin. How many times?
I just want to clarify. Is that Danger Zone?
No.
No,
No, it's not.
that's a different
No.
Kenny Loggins song.
Playing with the boys.
Playing with the boys.
Mhm.
Oh, 3. I don't know which. I can't think of which song that is. Oh no, that's
Okay.
the one where they were.
Hey, don't. Oh, actually, everyone's locked in. You can say whatever you want.
Okay, that's the last song at the end, and it was with him and the girl, right?
No. It's
No.
the song
Maverick.
when they say playing with the boys and the boys are playing.
I would say 2 times.
Okay. Doug,
I'm going to go with 1.
Tom,
I thought they played it twice, but I honestly cannot even hear the melody, even after having just watched the movie. So I'm going to say twice because that's what I locked in, but I think Doug is going to win.
well, Doug is very close. Doug's going to get the points, but the real answer is 1 epic time. Justin, this is the famous shirtless volleyball scene where they're playing with the boys. Very
Oh,
You know what
okay.
fighter pilots do when they're really trying to blow off some steam? They play some intense volleyball.
Mm.
All
So that's where this one came in.
Yeah.
Except for Goose. For some reason, he still has a shirt on.
That's
But
true. Goose didn't-
Yeah.
The other guys.
Yeah, he was. It's apparently so how they got them. How Kenny Loggins actually got the contract for the music is that they finish the movie, and then what they do is they invite a bunch of musicians to come in and watch it and write music for certain scenes and then submit it. And Kenny Loggins was the one who saw the volleyball scene and went, let's submit to that because no one else will. And that's how he got the contract for the
Oh, cool. I actually
For
didn't
this.
know that.
Kenny Loggins also wrote my parents' wedding songs, and not personally for them, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
See, I would have guessed the other way around, that they started with the music and then it's like, what would go with this?
No, this was
Volleyball.
this whole thing was like a star vehicle for Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Apparently he was on magazine covers everywhere. You were not only watching a Navy recruitment video, you were watching a star making video.
That is a perfect segue to the topic of the first question, which will be taking place in the form of a question. Why are we Team Maverick, or are we Team Maverick? Why?
Because we're told to be. He's a romantic figure, right? He's a Byronic figure. He's somebody who can do the impossible. He has a certain genius, we're told, for flying. And he also has a certain genius for women. He apparently beds quite a lot of them, according to Meg Ryan, who, by the way, this is the first time I'll say this. My favorite part of this movie was Meg Ryan. It's
wow.
the
Let's clip that
in
right
which,
there.
yeah, in which that will ever be true. Because I'm not a Meg Ryan fan. But so we find him appealing because he is this guy who plays by his own rules. Even though he's in the Navy, he does something extremely dangerous very well, and he's also extremely appealing to women. That's not what really happens with Val Kilmer's Iceman, who is, he's not somebody who has this kind of romantic spirit. He plays by the rules. He's not a Byronic figure. He's not heroic in the same way that Maverick is, because Maverick does it from his own kind of personality and his own talent.
Tom, of course, I know what Byronic means, but would you please define that for our listening audience?
Of course.
Before we turn it into a drinking game.
Anyway, so Byron was a poet of the Romantic era who, kind of wrote these Byronic verses, but he also went overseas and served in the Greek War back in the 1830s, I think it was. And so he combines that kind of romantic individualism with a sort of martial virtue, a kind of brave thing. He's also famous for these like long feats of swimming he would do. So another kind of demonstration of physical fertility. And he was also apparently, he got around with the ladies, including his own sister. But yeah,
controversial,
yeah,
to say the least.
But that's the Byronic figure, right? It's somebody who's brave, somebody whose actions come from their own individuality and not from society, and someone who's also very libidinous, very sexual.
So I think, obviously you start off the movie, focused on him, but I think, he has this genius, and he's, kind of playful, but, he's got this chip on his shoulder, and you kind of find that out over the course of the movie. And that's because his father officially disappeared, and the rumor is that, he did something wrong, or maybe he went AWOL or something, but it's very, the circumstances were dishonorable. And so he's got this chip on his shoulder because, he thinks his old man was great, but, apparently the people in the Navy think poorly on his family name. So he's got, this chip on his shoulder that he wants to be the best and kind of redeem his father in a way. And I think that's kind of like the driving force behind him. He likes to have fun and show off, but I think that's, kind of like the serious side of him.
Yeah, pretty much forced to, to be on his team. It's like Val Kilmer, Iceman. He's not very charismatic or, much of anything except, cold, calculated. So yeah, I mean, he comes off a bit bratty and emotional, but I guess that's also what gives him the, not like Tom was saying, doesn't really follow, the rules and, just does his own thing, which can add risk, but also reward too, So overall, I'd say he's all right.
I like that. Justin's review. Overall, he's all right.
It's time for question 2.
Back to Kenny Loggins. How many times do we hear Danger Zone play in the film?
Locked in.
Missile lock.
Yeah.
Locked on target. Okay, here we go. So, Justin, I'm starting with you, the last one.
Kind of torn between 4 and 5, but let's go for it like Maverick would. 5.
Okay, Doug?
I will go with 3, and I think I can name them.
Okay, Tom?
I also had 3, but I can't name them.
I
named
didn't-
2.
I was going to say I didn't require, but we can discuss it if Doug knows them all. The answer is 3. So Doug and Tom will get the point. Okay, Doug, would you like to share the 3 times?
All right. So the first one is in the beginning when they first, they're showing the aircraft carrier. And then the second was when they changed locations to Miramar. And then the third is, I think, when they go up, actually I have it in my notes here. Let me make sure. Yeah, into the fateful last flight where Goose dies. There's danger zone at the beginning of that one.
A truly dangerous zone after all.
Yep.
So yes, Kenny Loggins made bank on this film. And I still can't believe that the film was done before all this music was inserted, because I cannot imagine what this film looked like without this lyrics, but we'll talk, without the music, but we'll talk about that a little later. What I want to discuss for this question, again, in the form of a question, is antagonist who? Who is the antagonist of this film? Or what?
Well, so they fly Russian planes and they wear Russian symbols on their helmets, but we're really not sure where they're from.
It's true, because the MiGs were produced there, but they also were sold to other areas. But yeah, I think they probably didn't want to upset Russia, but I still think that was the Soviet Union times. So you're in Cold War.
1986.
Yeah.
It's still Soviet Union.
Yeah.
It's also, you don't really feel like they're an enemy. I honestly cannot figure out. I guess that a ship has gone into international waters in the Indian Ocean, and that's possibly going to irritate there isn't a kind of sense that these people are dangerous. And honestly, for most of the movie, you don't know the problem is going to rise at the end. And so the actual conflict is really, I think, if we think of dramatic conflict as being a collection of different variables, either like man against man, man against himself, man against society, man against God, man against fate, something like that. This is really kind of a man against himself, the real person that Maverick has to Conquer is his own sort of ego, and that chip on his shoulder Doug mentioned. That seems to be what most of the movie is about. My problem with the movie is like there isn't really a consequence for almost all of the runtime if Maverick fails to conquer his own ego. And it's a little unclear if he ever does or if it ever really mattered to begin with. I mean, he won't become number one in the class. He'll still graduate and be able to do whatever he wants, which is what happens anyway. He doesn't become number one in the class. And so I think the whole man against himself, having to conquer your own demons and whatnot, is sort of undercut by the fact that there isn't a tremendous amount of need for him to actually undercut or conquer his own demons.
What I always thought was interesting, they tried to make Iceman as a pseudo villain, but when I was paying attention to it, specifically in this watch, he's a villain because he's actually the ideal pilot who follows the rules and is just very specific and doesn't deviate from the cool, common, collected state that a fighter pilot should have. So it's tough to figure out where they're going.
See, the only case you could make for that is that he does purposely get in front of Maverick and Goose. Kind of blocking them from engaging the target. So at this point, they're playing on the same team, so they can't shoot each other. But he can prevent Maverick just by getting in the way. And because he does this, it's unintentional, but his jet wash is what causes Maverick to lose control of the plane. So there's an argument that you could blame him, although it's really not anybody's fault, really.
But it doesn't carry through. I do agree with you at that part of the film, because at the end they're like, "You could be my wingman any day." It's not a Bond villain.
Yeah, well, he makes up, Maverick, makes up for it by saving his life. So everything's good then.
Well, most of the movie, it was like training. I thought, honestly, I thought that the guys in the MiG were just on their side, like enemies, like fake enemies of training, until the end when they said, "Okay, we have a real thing."
The first one is real, though, right?
Is that wrong?
When they're on the aircraft carrier,
yeah,
but he does that special maneuver. That one's a real MiG.
When he went upside down.
Yes.
Yeah.
To look at them. Okay, so
But the other ones are all training.
Bookend the movie.
It was, yeah. So it was real, but there wasn't. The stakes weren't that high because they were just trying to kind of scare them off.
Surveillance.
Like getting missile lock. Well, they would get missile lock to try to scare them away without actually firing.
Yeah.
Because they're not allowed to fire unless they get fired upon. And then presumably the other side has the same rules of engagement. So they just kind of mess with each other.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the training exercise.
It's a big power
Well,
play.
that was just in the beginning because the other guy, I think Cougar, he gets really shaken up. And he can't land the plane without some help.
Oh, so I guess that's me. I was wondering. I was like, wow, he really got shaken up, and it's a training.
I had the same thought on this watch because I guess I forgot a little bit. But I was like, why is this guy getting so bent out of shape? And then I was like, oh, wait, yes, that was the real one. Then they go to Top Gun.
Okay.
The other thing I think that you find out later on is most of the pilots, in Top Gun, they're the best pilots, but most of them have never actually seen enemy aircraft, or at least they haven't seen MiGs, which are like the most fearsome enemy. So they're doing the training, but they haven't actually seen real combat. So that kind of makes that first sequence scarier.
I was going to say, and that's what Kelly McGillis's character is so interested in Maverick, in Tom Cruise's character, because he has this experience that nobody else seems to have had, actually dealing with a MiG.
Carnal knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. When I asked myself this question while I was preparing for this episode, my thought was the Mikoyan Gurevich itself, the MiG, was the antagonist. Just the thought of this MiG. It didn't matter who was in it, what country they represented. That was the antagonist.
You don't know they're coming back, though, right? Like that's kind of the problem with the movie, is that most of it is about winning a trophy that's not that important.
After round one, Doug is in the lead with 2 points. Tom has 1 point, and Justin is still with us. But don't worry, the questions in round two are all worth 2 points. We'll be right back after this brief message from one of our valued sponsors.
Hello,
And welcome back to
welcome
B-Side.
to B-Side.
Finally, it is B-Side.
Today we're going to be talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
We're going to be discussing the famous W.F. Murnau film from 1927, Sunrise. The Icelandic movie from 2015, Rams.
Juzo Itami's 1985 picture, Tampopo.
And today I'm going to be talking about a good old film that we just covered, and this is 1984's Ghostbusters.
Talking Pictures Trivia B-Side, wherever you listen to Talking Pictures Trivia.
And we're back. We're at the critical point of our episode where we ask our guests a key question. If you could write your own sequel for Top Gun 2, it doesn't have to relate to the new Top Gun 2 that's coming out and inspired us to rewatch this film. What would it be? Who would like to start? Justin, perhaps?
Sure. It would be more action, more meaning, more I would say Maverick and Iceman, like at war, maybe on the same team together. Just, we have better special effects these days. Just make something really, aggressive, non-stop action. A little less on the love story. That was a bit of excessive.
It's quite possible this is the Top Gun 2 coming out. Did you get credit for this, Justin?
I haven't even seen.
No, it's not out yet, but I wouldn't doubt.
I haven't even seen a commercial
everything you're saying is in the new one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Just go with the best special effects you got, and maybe against. Well, I don't know how China's Air Force is, or Russia. I'm not sure who would be the the enemy. But
how about both?
I'm not sure Russia is as fearsome
right
now.
And again, they're on the same team, Or I would say let's put the globalists as the enemy.
Oh,
let's put the world.
You're gonna bomb Davos, is that right?
Exactly.
We're turning this one up a notch.
We're actually going to war with Switzerland. That's the plot of Top Gun 2.
Yep. Klaus Schwartz gets missiled at the end. Klaus Schwab.
Klaus Schwab, the
blown out the freaking thing.
What is this thing called? What is Schwab's thing called? It's not Build Back Better. What is it? It's
the World Economic Forum.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, but you can do a whole nother podcast about
that took a turn. So Doug, what's yours? I'm sure it's a little different than Justin's take.
So what I hear or what I've read about the new one that's actually being made seems, pretty perfect, or at least the initial premise is that they have Goose's son being trained by Tom Cruise's character. But if I had to come up with something very different, it would be with Maverick and Iceman teaming up, but instead in a school or in a tournament setting, but instead of flying planes, it's going to be volleyball.
High stakes volleyball.
Very good. Yeah.
And somehow somebody dies by hitting their head on a volleyball post, and tragedy ensues.
I want to do the Maverick / Iceman fanfic, the softcore fanfic. For all those fan fiction readers out there.
I think it's time we move to round two.
Yeah, let's go for it.
It's time for question 3.
You may start to see a trend with these questions.
Is it also about the soundtrack? Is it about Kenny Loggins? Is it about Kenny Loggins' first hit? It's Danny's song. I know it already.
No, we're staying within the film, but we are going to move to a different artist. We're going to go to how about Berlin's Take My Breath Away? What's the count?
Oh, I'm gonna lock in. Right? Am I gonna
It's
lock
a
in?
lock.
Uh, I have something locked. I locked, so I gotta keep it.
All right. So I think this one has came up more often than Danger Zone, but at like shorter clips. So I'm gonna go with 4.
I'm gonna go with 5.
I'm gonna go with 2. I thought there was only 2 occurrences, but maybe it was shorter clips.
Doug is spot on, receiving the 2 points. So far, he's flawless with this music-related trivia of this film. I was shocked that it was 4 times. Like, I would have thought Danger Zone definitely was played more, but you're right, Doug. It was 4 times in this film, which is crazy. But the reason I brought this one up,
so crazy,
not because of any kind of connection with this song, which I do not have and doesn't exist. The topic, which of course is also in the form of a question, is chemistry. Do you think that Tom Cruise and the lead, I don't even know her name. What's her name in the movie?
Kelly McGillis. Oh, the characters.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie.
Do you think they had chemistry? Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, I'm not buying this. Am I out, or you guys feeling this?
I think he had more chemistry with certain other characters in the movie.
Yeah, he had more chemistry with Goose and
Goose. Yes,
Goose and
he had more. Yeah, and actually Meg Ryan's character. I actually, that's the movie I wanted to see him run off with her, and she was actually a lot of fun. Yeah, Kelly McGillis had a fairly quick rise and quick fall off. I think she was married to Fred Ward for years and years, but I think she also came out as gay eventually. I think her last marriage was a same-sex partner. But yeah, she kind of fell off the edge of the earth after the 1990s, right?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I think it takes me out of the film a lot. I don't feel it. Goose is the strongest bond Maverick has in this film.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say the kissing was definitely awkward.
Yes, I don't know what was up with that. Like,
I saw like
tongue
Cruise.
action.
Yeah, Tom Cruise really trying to stick some tongue down, and then it wasn't reciprocated. And now it makes sense that Tom says she's gay. So she was holding back. One of the lifetime fans, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, or she or bisexual, whatever it was. But yeah, that's very uncomfortable.
I think she came out a long time after that, though. I think she married
it was years
the
later,
guy before. Yeah,
she had 2 husbands before, and I think she was married to Fred
nothing to do with
Ward.
that scene. That's just
Fred Tillman. I'm sorry, not Fred Ward.
I don't think you have like a midlife crisis and just turn gay, though. You know.
No, but it's. I think a lot of it too is Tom Cruise. I don't know what you guys think. I've never found Tom Cruise convincing as this kind of lover in movies. I always find his interactions with his female stars always a little bit kind of stiff. I think part of it is Cruise is so in his like acting style is so energetic. There's this kind of like it's like a weightlifter who just keeps pushing to get through it. That's always the impression I get with Tom Cruise roles. He's just gritting his teeth to really show you he's working for it, which doesn't make really great romance. And I think also in this movie especially, there's a lot of this effort to paint him as this romantic bad boy. A lot of the dialogue's like that. There's this sort of way of him looking into the sunset or looking down and looking up. It feels very contrived. And I think it's more for me on him than on Kelly McGillis, though she's kind of cold. She actually is without charisma for this movie. I didn't find her that compelling a person. And she has an odd vocal quality too, right? She has, it's like this like mid-Atlantic accent that comes from nowhere that no one actually uses.
I didn't think about it until you just said that. But yes, there was something off. I didn't know if it was the recording or that's just her delivery. But you're right. There was something with, it's not cadence, it's more inflection.
It's an upper class New York accent or something like that. It's something, yeah, like an Upper East Side accent, which I fine. Maybe I mean, she has a very respected educational pedigree. We're made to learn, but it is, I guess maybe they're also going for this kind of like young up and comer meets the well-to-do woman, and there's a kind of romance with of people from different backgrounds, but that really wasn't developed.
It's time for question 4.
To wrap up the music-based questions for this episode, The Righteous Brothers' You Lost That Loving Feeling was played how many times?
Locked in.
Locked in.
That's what I was thinking of before.
Locked in, yeah.
Tom, start us up.
I'm gonna say 2. I think I know the 2 times, but I've been wrong before.
Okay, Doug.
I'm also going with 2. So this is played in any fashion during the movie.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, I agree.
Justin?
2 times.
Well, everyone is getting the 2 points. However, Doug will be taking down this episode flawlessly with 6 points, Tom with 3, and Justin on the board with 2. So, as I said, there was
Yay, well done.
Yes, good job. Doug, you know how many times different songs were played during this film? And it's an accomplishment.
Yeah, Doug has driven the highway to the danger zone, and he's lived to tell about it.
So I've been waiting pretty much this whole episode to pose the final topic, which is posed as a question. Is this a movie or a soundtrack?
It's a naval recruitment video with a little homoeroticism thrown in, because why not?
For good measure.
For good measure.
I think I would say a lot. Not just a little.
Not just a little.
I would argue that that it's a gay love story with a little bit of naval recruitment thrown in.
Yeah, but really though, like when I just went through these 4 questions, we've had a total of 4 songs collectively played 10 times.
Yeah. There part of the frustration with the movie, we're sort of making fun of the fact that there's a lot of the camera's very lusty on the men and also on the machines. There's this kind of odd kind of transhuman sexuality going on. However, the movie does follow the beats of a arc of development for Maverick, to the extent that they almost seem laughable or unnoticeable. Maverick is the cocky guy. He goes through the hardship. He has to overcome the hardship and then prove that he can get the job done in some way. There is something like there are very familiar, almost boring, actually deeply boring story beats that are going on. It's just the problem with it is there's no real, there's nothing at stake. I mean, I've said this 3 or 4 times this episode already. So you're not really worried about something happening. You're not worried something is going to happen. The fact that Goose dies is just entirely an accident. And yes, Doug, you pointed out that Iceman got in the way and what have you. Though that threat is never picked up. He doesn't even seem to be angry at Iceman after what happened. He's not any more angry at him than he was before. So I think the reason this made so much money has to in part due to the fact that it's a vehicle for Tom Cruise. It's one of these things where people kind of recognize this guy's going to be a big name for years and years to come. And it managed to capitalize on that. And then it just sort of lusts over big planes flying very quickly. And I guess that was enough to cash in.
I do think it's about the planes too, though, because now we have a lot of different media where we see all this, but I think those were more rare and cutting edge back then. So that allure,
It's the original Fast and Furious. It's kind of like,
I could see what you're going with
No.
that.
Little side topic. I happened to watch something that said Fast and Furious was basically a remake of Point Break. Undercover FBI agent sneaking in a guy who might be good, might be bad, and is like robbing people, and it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. No surfing, unfortunately, or skydiving. Yes.
Well, in later ones, I think they have car skydiving, if that helps you,
Right.
Tom.
Thank you.
But they go into space too, so.
Oh, well.
Do they? Which one do they go into
In the
space?
last one.
Oh,
in the
one,
John
cars
Cena
goes
one?
into space.
I didn't
Wow.
see it, but I did see the one where they outraced a submarine. So there's a lot going on.
I feel like that isn't hard, right? Don't you get the impression a submarine probably goes like 40 miles an hour max?
Yeah, but the water, like, there's more elements
the
there.
car was in the water.
I think it was ice,
Oh, okay.
right, Doug? No, you don't remember?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
I
number
don't
7.
remember.
Yeah.
I think they've done 9 of them, right? Yeah.
Well, if you count the spin-off, I think, what's funny? Fast and Furious ends up on this show a lot more than we think. I don't know why.
So average speed for a submarine, 24 knots, about a little more than 27 miles per hour. So not very hard for a Ferrari to do, I don't think. I did see that scene in part 7. But anyway, back to this movie. What were we talking about?
I think we're about to move into movie rant so we can talk about anything we want.
Can we go back to Fast and the Furious? I think I liked it more.
It's time for Movie Rant.
I thought I'd start off movie rant with something light. I mentioned it early on that there was a volleyball related bonus question just in case we needed it. Of course, Doug made sure we didn't, but here goes nothing. We all know you play volleyball better with your shirt off. According to Maverick, what is the ideal clothing article to wear for beach volleyball?
Oh, locked in.
Missile lock.
Malfunction.
Okay, again, it's not for real, so just shout it out. What is it, guys?
Jeans.
Blue jeans. Blue jeans. I what was up with that choice?
It's very Bruce Springsteen, right? You just see the Born to Run album on the screen.
That's got to be the worst thing when you're like sweating and trying to be mobile and flexible. Like this.
He's trying to get to his date right after, but of course he's late because volleyball is more important.
And he wants to shower when he's there, right? I don't know, I haven't gone on a first date in a while, but my understanding is that is not what you propose when you first get to the person's house.
But Tom, you're not a rebel. You're not dangerous.
Yeah, I guess I just smell good. That's
There's all those pheromones he was trying to get out there.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point of this scene is to show. Tom Cruise actually had an interview, and he's like, the point of the scene is to show that these guys are really hard edged. They're always competing. They're always fighting it out, and you just see whatever the kind of muscle flexing and the kind of lust the camera has over these young men aside. Like, my God, what a plush life they have, right? Like, whenever they're not flying, they're drinking or partying or playing volleyball in Southern California. That I think this is part of my stakes problem. Is it just things seem really good for these people, and maybe that's the appeal of the movie. It's like a male fantasy entirely. There isn't even a challenge. You just have to go up, be awesome, look hot, and do what you want.
Rewatching this after, however many years, just to see kind of like the things that I wouldn't have noticed, like as a kid, like all the, it seems like unintentional, but there's so much of it that, the gay innuendo. And, I kind of remembered some of the things, like how the last line that Maverick says to Iceman is, "You can be mine." things like that. But then, on rewatching it, then there's like these lines where like the commanding officer is like, if you take all this, if you can cut all this stuff like out of context, there's like a commanding officer that says like, I want some butts. And, he's referring to like, because he's mad at them for doing the flyby or something.
Yeah.
But
I don't think that was their intent. I swear. I think that's just
but there's so many of them,
analyzing for generations. I don't know how far I
the whole
want to go
movie
down this path, but I think
yeah, no,
I don't. I think it's much more innocent.
Well, I don't know, because at first I was thinking, what if maybe this is just one of those like silly theories, but then on rewatching it, there's so many of these like loving looks between these guys in these scenes too, that it's just like, okay, this is really weird. It's like, how is this all just accidental, and why do these guys have their arms around each other all the time?
Yeah, I think it's more camaraderie, and then they're trying to show unity. But I do understand how people have, I think, overanalyzed it, but to each his own.
Well, yeah, but I think it's also, these things, it wouldn't happen now, but like, in the 80s, acting certain ways, like, wasn't thought of as gay. But like, looking back at it now, there's like certain ways, like another one that I remember was Val Kilmer walks like in a funny way in the shower, like with, just like in a towel, just like strutting around. It's like really?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's this, kind of in a non-joking way, but there's this kind of homosocial thing going on, right? Like this world of men who have to do the dangerous thing, and their lasting affection really ends up being for each other. It's we could call it a brotherhood or even a family, but the connotation here is that these people have a sort of found family. And this is especially true of Maverick, who doesn't have a family. His parents are gone and have been gone for years. His longest relationship is with Goose. He can't even maintain a relationship with women, even though we're led to believe he's quite desirable. And so this idea that you often see in kind of like queer theory of found family, of people who don't belong elsewhere, who don't have a family, so they kind of make their own family. In queer theory, it's because they're queer, the traditional family structures just aren't going to work. But here there's something of the same thing. So I think, even like joking aside about the loving looks or whatnot, it is kind of the case that these people have to make their own family. And the fact that very often the wife or kid is kind of delegated to a photograph, with the exception of Meg Ryan's character, is, I think, speaks to that. And even with Meg Ryan's character, she seems to be as intimate with Maverick as she is with her husband. He's got his arm around her. It seems like he's as much in that family unit as Goose is. So I think there is something there, besides the fact that it's just very funny.
I think the reason why it made so much money, besides, I guess, Tom Cruise being a new star, but I mean, you can't go wrong with jets, flying. It's just kind of cool just to watch. Like, there's never really been any movies probably to that degree. Like, I guess that was probably the new, special effects of the time. And, it's just pretty cool. And what better, I mean, I just think being a fighter pilot is probably one of the most badass things you could ever do in ever, possibly number one. That's like, it's pretty awesome stuff.
The reality is, most people will never have the experience or the skill to hop in a $30 million in 80s money jet plane.
The smartest of the smartest, the quickest. It's
most people are too tall. There's actually a height requirement.
Tom Cruise will be fine then.
Yeah, he will.
That was another point. Tim Robbins played Merlin, who was his Rio radar intercept officer. And so he's, I believe, 6'5" in real life. So it's funny also, just because, I don't think he was that famous, or maybe not famous at all at that time. But like, you don't actually see Tim Robbins' face until like the very end. And then he's just like towering above everybody else. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I didn't even notice him. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's also they spent close to $2 million in 1986 money renting all of this material from the Navy. And they developed cameras to attach to the plane at different places. So you're not really seeing special effects. You're actually seeing what it would look like to be in these planes, or what it actually looks like from the wing or whatnot. They developed a camera to attach to the wing so you could see what's going on at these high speeds. They even had there's one scene where the plane takes off and the sun is in the background, and the air carrier went off course, and they had to pay 25 grand for it to turn around to go back to that place so they could get that shot. And so I think a lot of the appeal also is that you did have this in-depth use and look at naval equipment.
Yeah, now you want to see a plane, you can go on YouTube and see a million different copies
Yeah.
of plane
Mhm.
shows and all that. But
All
back
that stuff.
then, it wasn't as accessible to see
Mhm.
these marvels.
Yeah.
With the upbeat Danger Zone soundtrack. you
Oh
know,
yeah.
Kenny
There's not-
Loggins had a weird career, man. You hear early Kenny Loggins, like Loggins Messina stuff? It's really folky.
I was gonna say, I thought he was more of like a relaxed kind of country type of.
His early stuff was like really folky.
Yeah, I didn't realize
like
that was
my
even
my
his singing.
parents' wedding song was Danny's song, though when we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you.
Right, with your honey.
Oh yeah,
Everything will be
Yeah, it's a
okay.
totally different sound.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah, and that's
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that
Mhm.
kind of that's.
Yeah. Then he was working with Doobie Brothers, right?
Mm.
What was the Doobie Brothers song they won a Grammy for that he did with
Just listen to the music.
No, it's later than that. The Doobie Brothers song Loggins did was I can't even sing it. It's what a fool believes.
Give me more, Tom. Give me more. I haven't figured it out yet.
You got that song? What a fool believes by the Doobie Brothers. Kenny Loggins wrote the song with is it Michael McDowell? Who was the guy who came? He was later Doobie Brothers. It was not like the early stuff. You guys aren't Doobie Brothers experts, are you?
No.
What a fool believes.
I just read today that a stunt person actually died filming the movie, driving, I guess, one of the jets. And they say there was a similar to, when they went into the spin in the movie. I think kind of the same thing actually happened to a real one of the people driving the jets in the movie.
That's crazy.
And they died filming the movie. And I was, at the end, I was thinking, oh, they're going to put it like RIP or something. And they didn't even put it,
Wow.
for the credits. I think.
I feel like they would do that today.
Yeah, it's kind of, that's kind of disrespectful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's Art Scholl was the
Art
fellow.
Scholl, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad we could.
Oh, it
put
was a
shout
camera
out to
plane. Yeah.
Art Scholl here.
Oh,
Mhm.
camera play.
Yeah, I guess he was in a plane, a camera plane. So a plane filming the planes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
No, I think it's good that Art Scholl's name gets out there, because I think they should have said something to honor him.
I would say so.
Yeah, suppose he was a pilot, and I guess that was his skill, that he would fly things around and they would use him to bring the cameras to where they needed to.
I guess, just kind of mentioning or following up with what Tom was saying about the practical effects. I think that, that's something like that Tom Cruise is known for in his other movies as well, like the Mission Impossible movies, and it does show. I mean, this movie, I think the action sequences dated well, because it's not bad CGI from the 80s. And I think that's part of what makes Tom Cruise so bankable now as a star. I would guess, this was probably his first like real action movie, and so I'm guessing, he kind of stuck with that philosophy of trying to keep as many practical effect as possible. And I think it worked. Mission Impossible 6, the sixth movie in the franchise, I think was the best one, and just crazy stunts. So this new one, the sequel to Top Gun, I think they're doing the same stuff and probably pushing it even further, and with better cameras these days. I think it should be pretty impressive. So I'm looking forward. I'll probably see it in theaters.
Yeah, I would agree. It didn't really get outdated, like the special effects and stuff. Like being the last one we did was Batman Returns, and it was just, probably around the same year that they came out, but that one just seemed so outdated with the music scenes. Just so 80s, like terribly outdated. But this one, it has its faults, but it doesn't really scream out like, oh, super outdated 80s. Even the music is, still pretty good.
I had the same thought. One thing we may have discounted when we were talking about the allure of this film is the fact that this would have been on the big screen in the mid 80s. So imagine those jets roaring by, missiles being launched. Right now I'm watching it at home on some pretty good systems, but that might have been really a shocker at that period of time.
Something else I read was that it was one of the first VHSs that was priced to own. So I don't remember the price of things, when I was like 2 years old when this came out, but apparently VHSs were like $100. And this is like 80s movies, 80s money. So that's why, you could only really get it from the video store, because people weren't going to spend that much, or you might not even be able to just go to a store and buy it for $100. So I think, they had some kind of like Pepsi commercial or something, which helped bring the cost down. But I think it was one of the movies that kind of started the home VHS market going. And so that probably, led to a lot of video sales in addition to the box office.
That makes sense. I didn't know what they cost, because in my head, I'm only thinking about when I kind of understood the cost of things, which wouldn't have been in the early 80s. So I would have been way too young.
No wonder my parents never bought me that either. VHSs are either $100. Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking to Doug's point about practical effects, the new Top Gun Maverick has designed a new camera to fit inside of the jet planes they'll be using. So they're going to be expanding upon those practical effects in the new feature.
I also wouldn't be surprised if Tom Cruise actually flew a lot of the sequences, because
he is.
I actually heard that. Yeah, he is. Yeah. And a lot of the other actors are as well.
I don't want to say he overacts, but it's kind of boring.
Oh, he does. Yeah.
Borderline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On the edge.
Yeah. Just when he's standing there in front of the colonel or whatever, just like the way he's moving his body and stuff, I'm like, this guy really kind of overacting a little bit.
Well, someone who was worthy of all his achievements, unlike Maverick in some of these scenes, was Doug, who took down this episode in a flawless victory. Doug, congratulations once again.
Yay.
Thank you.
You can find more of our content wherever you listen to podcasts, on our YouTube channel, Twitter @Talking Studios, and our website, talkingpicturestrivia.com. We're extremely grateful to all those who subscribe, like, follow, and leave a review. Have you lost that loving feeling? Why or why not? Let us know on Twitter, talkingpicturestrivia@gmail.com, or give us a call at 201-467-8679. Thanks again, Doug and Justin, for joining us today. Always great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me back.
I'm glad that you're humble and aren't gloating too about your flawless victory. So thanks, Doug.
You can find me on Twitter @ThomasLehman15 and check out our sister podcast, Talking Pictures Trivia B-Side.
I can also be found on Twitter @TheNicknamed. Join us next time as we continue our military movie block to prepare for Top Gun 2 when we discuss Tom's recommendation from 1989, Casualties of War. Stay tuned for our first impressions of this film.
Ding, 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 ding. Hey.
Next week, we'll be discussing casualties of war. Ragnar, how was your watch?
It was a very memorable watch because it's one of the few times I had no clue what this movie was going to be about, just that it was directed by Brian De Palma. So I was almost expecting kind of a thriller, but what I got was incredibly heavy, incredibly uh, introspective about characters. There is a plot, but it's not quite a very fleshed out thriller plot. So it was a very deep and difficult to watch character study, and I really appreciated that. I was engaged the whole time. I probably won't be watching this again anytime soon, but I am very happy that I watched it. It was very affecting. What about you, Margaret?
So I came at this film. This was also a first time watch for me, and I came at this film as someone who has seen very few Vietnam War films. I've seen Apocalypse Now, and I've seen Forrest Gump, and that's pretty much it. And I had a pretty deep skepticism coming into this film, largely because I'm really skeptical of narratives that are focused on the brutalization of a woman as a central plot point. But I did read the New Yorker piece titled "Casualties of War" to kind of prep myself, and that was incredibly helpful. And it kind of gave me a framing question for this viewing. And that was this question that the soldier had with the interviewer, which was a generic question about the function of narrative and processing trauma. And he tried to put this narrative in a legal case to make sense of it. It didn't work. He put the narrative in this journalistic sense, and there was still this lack of resolution. So I looked at the film to think of it as another type of narrative to process trauma. And I think that it did that well to some extent, and failed in other ways, but it's definitely worth watching. How about you, Tom?
I saw this movie, I think in 2003, so some years ago, and I saw it as part of a film class. And not exactly like Margaret, but I have a skepticism of Vietnam War movies. I've seen very few that I've liked. I'm one of the few people who doesn't like Apocalypse Now. I'm sorry. I have no idea what that movie is supposed to be about. There's a lot of random dialogue about surfing. But anyway, the same thing with Platoon. I'm not a big Platoon fan. And it was, an odd thing because you're getting an 80s Michael J. Fox as well, which was unexpected in this role. But I really love it. I also really love De Palma, so that's part of the thing. I really like David Rabe, the screenwriter. I'm familiar with some of his plays. And his work tends to be about how war makes psychopaths, and he's a good writer for this type of work. And upon revisiting it, and I think it's been decades since I've seen it, it was much more overpowering this time than when I first saw it. So in my late 30s, it was much more affecting than in my early 20s when I first encountered it. And it's quite an overwhelming movie. It's a very, very hard movie to get through, but it's also it also has that kind of sort of sublime aspect. I mean, it's incredible to look at. It's filmed wonderfully, and even when the script goes awry, which I think it does sometimes, it's not a perfect script. I remember Pauline Kael said that great movies have flaws in referring to this, and kind of good movies just sort of they just don't reach heights. However, I think De Palma's camera work is well suited to this, and especially the scene when the woman is killed on the same bridge where they actually filmed the bridge over the River Kwai. Actually, it's that same location. Is incredibly haunting visuals, and to a certain extent you almost want to kind of turn off the sound or turn off the dialogue and just watch a lot of these visuals. But that was my maybe my second impression, my second watch of the movie. So I lied when I said I'd give you my first.
So did KJ prep you guys that The guest question is, each one of you tell us what you think your own sequel would be if you could make a sequel, and it doesn't have to be the new sequel that's coming out.
Yeah.
I did just see this in the show notes, but
Yeah.
I was not prepped beforehand.
Yeah, I'm not really proud.
KJ,
That one though. That was the
KJ, we're docking your pay.
No, I did see that. That was
Oh,
just
good.
the only one. I didn't write anything down for it.
Cool.
I have to think about this.
Well, I'm winging it right now.
Good one.
I'll lead with Justin and get Doug. You need a moment.
You want me to wing it then? Okay.
Yeah.
Wing
Yeah,
it.
go for it. Go for it. Wingman it.